Hello, and welcome back to the Women's Rugby Show weekly podcast brought to you by Moonrise Sports. I'm Sam, by the way, and we are back again for episode 18 of the podcast. Another bumper episode where this week we'll be looking at the Six Nations, heading into the Red Roses camp, where we'll talk to a player and a coach from the Red Roses ahead of their game against Scotland this weekend. The Allianz Cup is back, domestic rugby in the UK is back, and we'll be talking to a player from three of the teams. We'll be talking to Bryony Field from Saracens, Lucy Burgess from Bristol Bears, and also Lilli Ives Campion from Loughborough Lightning. And we'll be talking a little bit about the Allianz Cup and the importance of that. We'll also have our Moonrise 5 segment brought to you by our sponsors, Moonrise Sport, where this week we'll be asking 5 random questions to one of the Moonrise athletes. And this week it's Maya Montiel of Canada and Saracens. And finally, we'll be bringing you all the news as well. Before you get into this episode, make sure you check out our sponsors, Moonrise. Head over to their platform on the internet and also across all social medias. And also check us out across all social media as well. We've done all that. Well, let's get into this episode. I mentioned starting with the Six Nations, and we'll be heading into round 3 of the Guinness Women's Six Nations this weekend. The big news before we head into this round is the return of Cliona Maloney to the Irish setup. I think everybody in kind of the game knows how important she can be for Ireland, and it's so good to see that her time in exile is hopefully over. We don't know if she's playing this weekend yet. Well, fingers crossed she will be involved against Wales and at the RDS. So it's great to see her back. She's massively deserves it. She's been so good for Exeter during this exile period, and I think it's just great for Irish rugby that she's back in the setup. Obviously, this weekend sees England travel up to Scotland. We'll be hopefully off up to Edinburgh as well to watch that one. Really excited to get back up to Edinburgh. It's a great place to watch rugby, the Hive Stadium. It's a sellout as well. It's going to be really exciting to see nearly 7,000 people, just over 7,000 people supporting Scotland. I think, as you'll hear in a minute from Rosie Galligan, they say how tough it is to go up to Scotland and just how tough a place it is to go play rugby, having the Scots on your back. And obviously, we'll be really excited to go up there. And then, obviously, like we just mentioned, Ireland hosting Wales at the RDS. Massive game for both sides. Obviously, both of them 0 from 2 so far. A big win for whoever takes that win. Obviously, Wales be really, really gunning for this one after the opening 2 defeats, and Ireland as well. I think they're taking that steady improvement. So it's going to be really interesting to see who actually wins that one. And finally, France taking on Italy in Paris. I think another exciting game. Italy one win out of 2, France 2 out of 2, but arguably looking a bit shaky, I think, especially against Scotland. Obviously, Scotland was so good in that game, but France a little bit shaky, not quite there. Building for England in the last game of the Six Nations, but a massive game for Italy. That if Italy can get anything out of that, it'll be a huge showing and also a huge push for them to finish as high up as they can in this year's tournament. So enough of me waffling on. Let's get into our hearing from Rosie Galligan, England second row, and also England attack coach Lou Meadows. Yeah, just a couple of quick ones from me. Rosie, first of all, just obviously you touched on that performance against Wales at Ashton Gate. Just an incredibly kind of record crowd outside of Twickenham and a try for yourself. Just how special was that kind of as a day?
Yeah, it was a really special day. I think one of my highlights of the day was actually when Abidal made the break down the line and you just heard the crowd erupt. It actually gave me goosebumps whilst playing. So that for me was a bit of a surreal moment. But I just think it shows how far the game's come. Like the tournament itself has had so much more media exposure, and I think it's a really exciting platform heading into 2025 next year. And how exciting could it be having a full stadium at Twickenham for the final?
And you mentioned the darts night. Just who organised that, and just also who won the darts?
I think it was Bots that organised it. She managed to find the darts board underneath Penny Hill. So that came out one day, and ever since there's been a lot of darts players. I can't actually remember who won. Taps and Kelsey won. So probably underdogs in the grand scheme of things, but yeah, it was just an amazing night. Like we got into our little mini teams that we've been doing lots of warm-up games in, and all had like personalized t-shirts with our darts names on the back. So it was just a full buy-in, and I think that's what's really important, is that everyone was there participating in whatever form that was. I don't want to give too much away because it wasn't all PG.
And just one quick one for you, Lou. Obviously, Scotland have kind of taken this massive step up from where they have been before. Just big win against Wales and also pushing France close. Just how important is that for the Six Nations, is kind of the Six Nations tournament in women's rugby going forward?
I think it's huge for the growth of the game, like showing how teams are now using the increased investment and time and focus into their women's programs is going to be massive. And that just increases the competition across the tournament and across the game. So it gives multiple players opportunities to be performing at the top level. They get to access the full training programs. And then you see that in their execution on the pitch. And you just see the games now getting tighter and more competitive, which again, is more attractive to watch. So then we increase the media presence and the coverage and then the crowds, which is just going to grow the game even more every time. And I think now having increased competitions, particularly at Six Nations, which is always a really fun tournament between those countries, gets everyone really excited for it. So whether you're there physically or you're there watching on the TV, everyone's behind every minute of the game.
Perfect. Thanks both. Again, like we mentioned in the introduction, part 2 of the podcast this week is the Moonrise 5 segment, brought to you by our sponsors, Moonrise Sports, interviewing one of their athletes each week, asking them 5 random questions from a list we're collating of questions about rugby, but not about rugby, if that makes sense. This week, like we said, it is Saracens in Canada prop, Maya Montiel. So, Maya, thank you so much for chatting to us today. Obviously, you're one of the Moonrise athletes. So do you want to talk a little bit through about the platform and why you're on the platform, first of all?
So I just recently joined the platform. I think it's a great way for anyone to connect with athletes. I think it provides a lot of, I would say, guidance. Also for anyone who has questions about literally anything and everything. And in my head, as soon as I joined Moonrise, I was like, you know what? One conversation can lead to a million possibilities. And I remember when I was a younger player that maybe one conversation could have changed the whole path of my career. And also could have opened doors to many more. So I think it's great now that we can provide that to people who are looking to use this platform. And I would say to also maximize our resources.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good. So I just got kind of like 5 random questions now from a list of questions we have. So number 1 just is, what's the most memorable game of your rugby career to date and why?
I have a few, but I will say getting capped for my first international game with Canada.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I'll always remember. Which was summer 2022. And it was always like a goal that I was working hard to aim for, and just getting onto that pitch. I just remember one of my teammates giving me a big hug when I got onto the pitch, and it was just, I will remember that moment for a long time.
And what's your favourite rugby ground you've ever played in?
My favorite rugby ground, I will say at Saracens.
Mm-hmm.
I just think because it's such a professional environment, and just being in that big stadium, sometimes it gives me the chills every time I go there, like even just for practice. You know, it's something that you see on TV. It's the kind of training ground that you see on TV, and then just knowing that that's now like my work environment is outstanding. And it also, like, I think that training ground keeps us to really high standards in everything that we do.
And the next question is, who's the toughest individual opponent you've played against?
Definitely New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been hit so hard in my entire life. I just remember having the ball. I took one step, and next thing you know, my face was in the grass on the ground.
Yeah. And question number 4 is kind of similar to the ground one, but what's the favourite city you've travelled to while playing rugby?
My favorite city I've traveled to while playing rugby. It would have to be... Great question. My favorites. I would have to say Spain.
Mm-hmm.
I think just the air there is just different.
Yeah. Memento or anything you've kind of collected from your rugby career so far? Maybe like a shirt or a piece of kit, a cap, or anything like that?
I would say anything material.
Mm-hmm.
I think more like the friendships that I've built over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely you realize who your friends are, who your fans are, and who your acquaintances are with your rugby path. Like rugby has brought me a lot of things in my life, but has also taken a lot away from me. And I think just developing those like core relationships with some teammates that I'm gonna have forever. And I mean, some come and go, but that's all part of the sport, right? So yeah, definitely and also I would say my coaches, all the coaches that have guided me through where I am now.
Perfect. So, Maya, thank you so much for taking time today to chat to us today, and best of luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Top level domestic rugby in England is back this weekend with the Allianz Cup. 4 games across the weekend with all teams involved apart from one, due to the way it works this year. 7th place playoff is going to be a little pool, so Leicester Tigers, Quins, and Ealing are involved in that, and the one of them plays one week, then the other, and the other's just kind of like a round robin. So it's Tigers and Quins this weekend. 5th place playoff between Sale Sharks and Loughborough Lightnings over 2 legs. First up this weekend at Hayward Road, Sale Sharks hosting Loughborough Lightning, and that's actually a double header. So if you're in Manchester, make sure you head down to that, because you got Sharks Lightning, also Sharks Women's C of E against Worcester Warriors C of E afterwards. And then the 2 semi-finals, one on Saturday, Saracens against the Chiefs at the Stonex. Then on Sunday, Bristol Bears against Gloucester Hartpury. 2 massive games there. And the way it will work is the 8th team will play again, I think, on the 14th, the weekend after. Ealing play Leicester. And then the last game of the tournament, Ealing play Quins, sorry. And then obviously that's on the 27th. And then the reverse again, Lightning will play Sale at Franklin's Gardens, and then there'll be 3rd place playoff and the final, both taking place on the Sunday. And the way that works, the team who hosts the final is a team that wins their semi-final by the most points. So if Saracens beat Exeter by 12 and Bristol beat Gloucester by 5, then it'll be the Stonex and so on, depending who wins those games and by how much. But if it's level and it goes by points difference, then it gets complicated. But let's hope for the people organising this, it doesn't get too complicated, and for us as well. But again, enough of me waffling. 3 different players to hear from here. We've got Bryony Field from Saracens, Lucy Burgess from Bristol Bears, and also Lilli Ives Campion from Loughborough Lightning. Let's get into these chats. Well, good. Obviously, Bryony, first of all, thank you so much for chatting to us today. Just obviously, it's been a long time kind of since that last PWR game. Just what's kind of mood like being in the Saracens camp? What have you been up to? Have you had much time off? So kind of what's the training block look like?
So we had a little bit of a break after the Bristol game, which I think was probably for the best. Give everyone a bit of time to just take their mind off rugby for a bit, and then we've been back in for the last few weeks. A bit of a new group, just kind of building as a team and building as like a group with quite a few new faces in it, which has been really good. Obviously a bit different, but I think the sort of change of dynamics probably done the team a bit of good and helped people kind of set some new goals. And I think we've just been building really over the last few weeks.
Just how important is the cup for kind of player development? Obviously, players like yourself have kind of risen through this in the past. Just how important is it for the development of women's rugby kind of just in the UK?
As in the cup?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think, with obviously all your internationals leaving for international duty, it changes the group dynamic a lot, because a lot of the kind of the players who are kind of your natural leaders within the group stepping away, which is always a challenge, but I think it also provides a really good space for people who are at, different points in their rugby journey to then maybe find a bit of a different role within the group, and maybe work on some of your softer skills, like your confidence and your leadership, which, they take time to build just as physical skills do. So I think the cup block is so valuable for that kind of thing, and just gives maybe younger players just a bit more space to kind of find their style and just kick on a bit more. I think it's really important.
Have you found yourself stepping up at all into kind of that leadership space? Obviously, like you mentioned, so many of the internationals are away.
I mean, it's definitely something I try and do. Like, I think I'm still playing around a bit with kind of finding my own personal leadership style, and obviously being quite new to Sarries, like this is my first season here. It's also a really good opportunity for me to build my confidence within the team, out on the pitch, still finding how I slot into the sort of bigger picture, I guess. But I'd like to think I try and lead as best as possible, but I'm not always the best at being particularly vocal in huddles and things like that. But yeah, I try my hardest.
And obviously, there's been quite a few players away at the moment, stepping up on that international stage. Obviously, you got Corinne Grant, really impressive for Scotland, and then also a lot of the girls being away with under 20s, Tori, Chloe, Amelia, Joy. Just how special is it to kind of see these players excelling on the international stage?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that you don't get to see often. So when times like this in the season come, it's pretty special just seeing, especially with like the way that women's rugby is growing at the moment, like seeing people popping up on your social media and seeing highlights from people going out and playing for their country, and it's pretty crazy. Like it's definitely something that, the sort of visibility of all of that kind of thing has definitely grown so much in the last couple of years that it's something that's really cool to see, and obviously really proud of all the girls going out and stepping up onto that international platform. Privileged to get to train alongside most of them most of the year, I guess.
And obviously, like you mentioned, it's your first season at Saracens, just semi-final week. Does that kind of have a different feeling around the training week this week?
Yeah, I definitely think, coming up to sort of a semi-final or a final, like definitely a bit of tension building around training. But I think the most important thing probably for the group is just to approach it as we would a normal game. Train as we mean to play and take a real focused attitude towards all of our sessions so we can just prepare ourselves as best as possible and focus on what we need to do as a team before thinking really about the sort of weight of the game or anything like that. I just think just focus on ourselves, and I'm sure we'll do what we set out to do.
And just how important is this kind of block of 2 cup fixtures heading into the final stages of the PWR? Obviously, I think 3 or 4 games after that break, just kind of the business end of the season. Just how important is that?
Yeah, massive. I mean, there's a lot of younger players who are in this cup squad, but with that as well, we've got quite a few experienced players who are sort of making up the most of that sort of cup group. And I think these couple of games that we've got not only sort of develop the depth that we have in the squad, but also just build the confidence and energy levels that we have around the environment going into some of the kind of business end of the season. So I think if we can sort of get back into routine and find that sort of energy within the group, it'll put us in really good stead for the end of the season.
Perfect, Bryony. Thanks for your time today and best of luck for the weekend.
All right, cheers. Thanks, Sam.
It's been quite a while since your last game in the PWR. Just kind of what's this block been like? A lot of time off or a lot of training? So what's it kind of just been like?
We haven't really stopped, to be fair. We've tried to keep the momentum going in terms of training, and I think, we literally have had no time off really. We've just been sticking at it. And I think it's been really good for everyone because it's people getting reps in, people switching in and out. And I think it's a great opportunity for people getting involved, and it's really helped us, I think, as a squad as well.
Mm-hmm. And just how important is this kind of cup competition to player development? Obviously, you see a lot of players going off playing internationally at the moment. Just the players still at theirs. Just how important is this competition?
I think personally, like viewing it, it's massively important. I think just to the development of
the whole like PWR, and I just think it's really important that you don't really see what goes on, but there's so many girls here that are training week in, week out, pushing to play, and it's such an opportunity for them. Like, and I don't think people realise how important it is. So I think having this weekend is going to be really special for a lot of people to get that game time and to really show what they can do.
And just how special is it to kind of see those players making a step up at under-20s level like Renika Bonner, and also making a step up international like Jenny Hesketh, obviously making a debut. Just how special is it from the people still at Bears, people who played with them through these kind of cup competitions, to say, oh, they've made that step up, man?
Oh yeah, like we're all really proud of them. They've been doing amazing as well. Like you can see how much they've developed as well. Obviously having that cup period was really important for them because they got the opportunity to be able to play in that, and now they're obviously got regular game time in Prem, and then they've pushed on to obviously play internationally. And I just think it's amazing for them, and how far they've come is a great accomplishment, and it's a dedication to what they've been putting in training and in games, and just shows if you keep working hard, like it will pay off.
And just one last quick one from me. Obviously, these two cup block fixtures, how just before the big block of PBR, and just how important is it to kind of build foundations ahead of that PWR run and kind of pushing for that semi-final spot?
Sorry, you broke up a little bit there.
Oh, sorry. Just how important is kind of this block of two cup fixtures ahead of the PWR run and kind of building foundations heading into that?
Massively. Like the team that's here now is the team that's training week in, week out in training. So I think it's really important that obviously we want it to be seamless when the internationals come back in as well, especially, and everyone's swapping in and out. So I just think it's great for us moving back into the Premiership as well, as we've got games after. So it gives people some more game time to be able to do that and really prove themselves as players as well. And put their hand up for playing in the Prem. And I think that's really important.
Perfect. Thanks, Lucy. Best of luck for the weekend.
Thank you.
Lilli, first of all, thank you so much for taking your time out of your day to chat to us today. Just how are you, and kind of how's this big break from PWR been? Obviously, you've had plenty of rugby, unlike a lot of other people. Just how have you found this kind of big break from the PWR, first of all?
I think it's been really fun. I think that I've been able to play rugby, I suppose. I've not actually played all year. So with that being, so we played with England under-20s, captained them against the Army, which was a brilliant game. Really, really big result for us, like leading into our game against France next weekend. Played in the Bucks semi-final, again, first time playing for Bucks, like really high pressure game, but actually in terms of the game, like I really, really enjoyed it. It was really good fun to run out with like all the uni girls, and I think that we had a really good game, and to get that win to go to the final at Stonex next week is brilliant. I think the girls performed really, really well on the day, and this break has allowed that, and this break has allowed for different areas of rugby to be played, and like I've really enjoyed that. And I think that I've been in camp a little bit, then come out of camp, so I think that's just been actually really refreshing to play some rugby, and actually just to really, really enjoy it. And I think that it's definitely, I've really enjoyed it really, actually. Yeah.
And also, how much of it is kind of a chance for Lightning to work on different things that's happened throughout the season in training, when there's, say, not all the international players are there, but there's still a good block of people, a good block of time to be able to work on things that perhaps there isn't time to do during the season so far?
Yeah, what I think is brilliant with our group is that actually the standard of rugby doesn't differ too much, and I think that we have the way we train regardless of who's in the squad. So for example, our Tuesday sessions are still equally as hard. And I think that what's brilliant is that we all rise up to that. And I think with the group we've got a lot of younger players in the squad. We've got some college girls come into the squad who play for the CB. We've got, the squad is it's obviously our cup squad, but I think actually what's brilliant about this team is that we can still train to that really high intensity that we needed to over the Prem season. And I think that the standard of play isn't that dissimilar, and I think that we play and train really, really well. And at the moment we've got a real focus on, we've got a final to prepare for, we've got cup games to prepare for, so we've got a few different things that we're aiming as for a squad. But as a squad, it's for us to work together, and how can we utilize the best of each other to get the best into these two games coming up.
And just how important is this kind of two cup fixtures for player development heading forward? Obviously, so many players have made this step up into the cup before and now going on to bigger things. Just how important is it kind of heading forward?
I think the cup is really important. I think there's a lot of people in a rugby squad who potentially don't get a lot of game time over the Prem. And I think what's great is that to have a squad, you have a spine of a squad, and then the spine of the squad is like you have the whole squad you need to develop. So yes, that might be in Prem, but also this might be in Prem Cup for some players who are still developing. And I still think the standard of Prem Cup is really good. And I think the fact that some players can go into that really challenges their own development, but also allows them actually just not to be training all the time and to have this outlet of rugby. And I think that's absolutely brilliant. And I think for the league to develop and the league to get more competitive, I think that's exactly what the league needs.
Obviously, you spoke about captain in the 20s recently. Just how special was that and how proud of you with that kind of achievement?
Oh, it was amazing. And I think that it's something that I probably dreamt of for a long time. And I think obviously I've been involved in the 20 squad for a while. So I've seen it, and I've seen things seen it all develop. And I think actually the fact that I could lead the squad out on the weekend was like really unbelievable. I think that was a massive achievement for myself. But I also love the squad that we have at the moment. We have like an amazing squad. We've got like the players, you can name some really fantastic players like in that squad. And I think that there's something really special brewing with this team. And I think that we've got a really good chance against France coming up this weekend. I think that's probably one of our biggest games, and it has been for the last like 4 or 5 years. And I think this is like a really, really great group to go into that game and to try and take that game to them. And I think that in terms of that achievement, I think, I just loved it. I think regardless of the scoreline, and I know it was a massive scoreline, which was great, I think that we actually came together and worked really well regardless. So we didn't try and run away with the game when we couldn't. Like we still were really clinical, which was really good.
Just how special is it to see players kind of stepping up away from Lightning International? Obviously, you've had, I think there was 8 of you playing for the 20s. There's been 4 girls playing for England under 18s. There's Scottish girls playing. There's Sardia, Emily, and Helena. There's the Americans. Just how special is it to see those players going away from Loughborough and excelling on the international stage?
Oh, it's amazing. And I think it really highlights the pathway that we have here. And I think the fact that our pathway is so unique is because that it's really fluid. And I think that's between the college team, CAV, Bucks, Lightning, International. I think that it's really seamless. And I think the fact that we have a lot of players out on international, what's the word? International
duty.
There you go. That was the word I was looking for. Because the fact we have a lot of players out on international duty like really highlights actually the strength of the squad and like the strength of actually the pathway that we have, which is really good. But I think it's just really nice to see that everyone can go out and actually flourish away from Lightning and flourish and play against their country. So I think that just really brings out a different level of confidence within those players, and that you can really see that when they play.
And you mentioned that one of the bits of the path of their books, obviously the final next week at the StoneX. I believe it clashes with 20, so you won't be involved. Is that correct?
Yeah, it does clash.
Yeah, just how nice is it to see Loughborough obviously reaching that level of the final for the chance for the players who aren't involved in 20s to play in a final against a really strong Hartford team at the StoneX.
Yeah, well, we've actually not reached a final for 19 years. Mm-hmm. And I think that it is actually an unbelievable milestone for us as it is now, but we're at the final we've got at StoneX, I think is great. And I think that for all the players involved in that, I think there's a really good vibe about it in camp and in at Loughborough. And I think that we're all really excited for it. And I think that, we've got a really good opportunity to go there and then go win Bucks.
Obviously, just finally for me, after the 2 block of cup games, final round of PWR fixtures, just obviously currently 5th in the PWR. What kind of constitutes success for Lightning come the end of the season?
That's a really good question. I think that success for us can be measured so many different ways. I think if we look at the season where we're at now, I think there's if we look in comparison to last season, I think that just shows success in itself, but how much we're performing more in games. But I think success for us is actually how well we can perform in these next few games. And I think that we've got a few big games coming up actually, and it's actually how can we perform in those? How can we meet targets that we want to meet in those games, and how can we potentially come away with the win in them? And I think because we work a lot in blocks, I think this next block will have a real target of actually what can we get out of that. And I think that for us so far, like we've achieved a lot, but I think how much more can we achieve then, I think is probably what will be our aims.
Perfect. Lilli, thank you so much for taking time out of your day today, and best of luck for the weekend and best of luck for England under 20s and France as well.
Thank you.
And as always, on the Women's Rugby Show Weekly, we'll conclude with the news from around the women's rugby world. Starting off here in the UK, and it's been confirmed that the Red Roses will host the Black Ferns at Twickenham in September. Who knows what crowd that will gain? Obviously, we're building to Ireland at Twickenham in a week and a bit's time. So the Black Ferns at Twickenham in December is going to be massive. Ahead of a World Cup in 2025, we're recording this today. It was 500 days to go yesterday. So it's all building up to that World Cup final at Twickenham. So who knows what kind of crowd we'll get from September. But the Red Roses will also be playing France in a WXV warm-up. So France and the Black Ferns and WXV warm-up to the Red Roses. Staying kind of in the UK as well, there's a target for a 2026 Women's Champions Cup with proposal to be examined this June. I think that'll be massive to see. Imagine the Gloucester Hartprees playing the likes of Stade Toulousain, and just seeing how those two clash, seeing the French and English play against each other regularly. Obviously, we see all the Celtic teams over in the PWR playing against each other, playing against the English teams, but we don't tend to see these English players take on the French players. So that'll be really exciting to see. Sticking with international rugby, moving on to international rugby again, and Andorra became the 76th test side to play international women's rugby. Thank you to Scrum Queens for this one, with a debut 119-0 victory over Bulgaria over the weekend. A brilliant kit the Andorrans are wearing as well. If you haven't seen it, head over to Scrum Queens on Twitter to see the kit. Delightful, based on their flag, really nice kit. Moving on to sevens, in New Zealand won the Hong Kong Sevens with victory over USA in the final. Australia coming third and France coming fourth. Heading into Singapore in a couple of weeks' time in May the 5th. GB face a battle to avoid the relegation playoffs with Brazil. GB are currently 2 points ahead heading into Singapore. Moving on to under-18s, international rugby in France came away unbeaten from the under-18 Six Nations Festival in Colwyn Bay, with 5 wins from 5, including beating England on the last day. Speaking of England, they came away from that tournament with 3 wins, 1 draw and a loss, the draw to Italy and a loss to France. We were there from the first day of that tournament. It was so good to watch, so much impressive performances. Really enjoyed it as well. I think some of the talent coming across all the teams is really impressive. Hannah Marshall at 10 for Wales is one that really stood out for us. So really excited to see her future. Obviously, Charlie Guyat at 10 for France. Daisy Aspinall, we've talked about before, for England. And yeah, just really impressive performances from across the Six Nations there. Moving over to the Southern Hemisphere in Super W, the Waratahs remain unbeaten in the Super W heading into the final pool phase this week. Virgin Drew are sitting second, so both of those two in a promising position to head into the semi-finals and get a home semi-final. Super Rugby Alpiki concludes this weekend. The final is on Saturday at Eden Park with the Blues taking on Chiefs Manawa. Going to be a massive game. Both sides have been really impressive throughout the tournament so far, so keep an eye out for that over the weekend. And finally, the Bucks Women's National League final takes place next Wednesday at the StoneX with Hartpury University taking on Loughborough University. Both teams coming away from their semi-finals with big victories. A lot of under-20s talent, a lot of PWR talent have been playing in those games, but unfortunately, with the England under-20s heading to France next weekend, it means they won't be involved for the final. Very annoying for the teams, the players, that they won't get to be involved. For the university, for their side, the players they play with week in, week out. But it is what it is. The organisation clearly hasn't gone through there brilliantly, but it's great to see that the England under-20s are getting these games, so it's kind of a win-win, lose-lose situation. But yeah, Bucks final next Wednesday, Super Rugby Alpiki final on Saturday, Six Nations is back this weekend, Allianz Cup is back this weekend. What more could you want in the women's rugby world? Thank you for listening to this week's Women's Rugby Show Weekly. Make sure you check out our sponsors, Moonrise Sports, and also check us out across all social medias as well. Thanks for listening, and I've been Sam, by the way.